Who is Marie-Louise von Franz? A Swiss Jungian psychologist born in 1915, von Franz was a close collaborator of Carl Jung for over 3 decades. She became a leading figure in analytical psychology and helped shape and expand Jung's seminal concepts. She also struck out in new directions, particularly in the study of fairy tales, alchemy, and number symbolism. Her prolific writings sought to illuminate what Jung called the objective psyche, the collective unconscious, by interpreting its manifestations in myths, dreams, symbols, and even the patterns of numbers and matter. Von Franz's work is characterized by deep conviction that psyche and material reality are reflections of one another, connected through meaningful patterns and symbolic correspondences. One of von Franz's major contributions was as a scholar of alchemy, the medieval art of transforming base metals into gold, which, fun fact, CERN did just do this by colliding lead particles together. So that's not something that we can do with, like, urine and magic. It's not going to happen like that, not like in movies. Jung had pioneered the idea that alchemical symbols actually describe a process of psychological transformation or individuation, and von Franz carried this further. So instead of saying this is real, literal, like you can turn lead into gold using natural materials or certain chemical combinations, she's like, no, this is actually the steps for interpersonal transformation. She illuminated alchemy's symbolic processes as analogies for individuation and the integration of the psyche. In works like Alchemy, An Introduction to the Symbolism and the Psychology, and her commentary on Aurora Consurgens, an alchemical treatise attributed to Thomas Aquinas, von Franz showed how the cryptic imagery of alchemists expressed deep psychological truths, and not a roadmap for riches. In Alchemy, her view provides a symbolic map for the ego's encounter with the unconscious. Her opus work begins with chaos and disintegration, like the stage of blackening, and ends in the harmonious integration of the self, or the alchemical gold. In practical terms, individuation, or the process of becoming one's true whole self, follows a similar arc of dissolution and recombination of psychic elements. Franz emphasized that the alchemist's work was not just a metaphor. They genuinely toiled with physical substances, yet their material quest for gold was actually a spiritual discipline. It was a yoga of the West, aimed at transmuting the soul alongside matter. This link between psychic and physical transformation pointed for von Franz to a mysterious interface of psyche and matter, the place where inner and outer worlds meet. In fact, she suggested that individuation has a cosmic dimension, reflecting the greater alchemy of nature itself. Our souls, like fractals, may grow according to patterns of transformation that are identical with those in the broader universe. Another domain where von Franz bridged psyche and matter was in her pioneering interpretation of numbers. Building on Jung's intuition that number is a fundamental archetype of order, von Franz argued that numbers carry qualitative meaning and reflect the deepest patterns of psychic organization. Her magnum opus, Number and Time, in 1974, explored how numerical structures appear in mythology, dreams, ancient philosophy, and modern science, suggesting that numbers have served as numinous vessels for archetypal configurations of the objective psyche. For example, she noted that across cultures, the number 1, or the monad, symbolizes primal unity or God, the source of wholeness. 2, the dyad, evokes the archetypal polarity of opposites, male, female, light, dark, yin, yang. 3 suggests a resolving or meditating principle, the third that reconciles the opposites. And 4, the quaternity, signifies completeness and stability, and often associated with the wholeness of the self. These archaic symbolic meanings of numbers hint that our mathematical order might be rooted also in archetypal order. Indeed, von Franz demonstrated that numerical patterns underlie not just mysticism and myth, but also the frameworks of modern life, from the binary code of computers to quantum equations of physics. In her view, numbers have a dual nature. They're both quantities and symbols of meaning. This mirrors Jung's own observation that a number is as much discovered as it is invented, its quality as well as meaning. Jung even speculated that number may be a key to the mystery of how psyche and matter align, an archetype of order bridging the two realms. Von Franz took this idea seriously, proposing that by studying numerical archetypes, we gain insight into the structure of the psyche, and perhaps the structure of physical reality itself. Such insights challenge the modern tendency to treat numbers as purely quantitative, and instead, von Franz invites us to a renewed appreciation of the qualitative, symbolic dimension of numbers, its power to convey meaning and value, not just measurement. This stance subtly suggests that the mathematical laws governing the cosmos and archetypal patterns guiding the psyche might be reflections of one another, an idea that edges intrinsically close to certain views of theoretical physics and philosophy. Perhaps the most famous concept linking psyche and matter in Jungian thought is synchronicity, and here too von Franz made significant contributions. Synchronicity is Jung's term for the acausal connecting principle, whereby an internal psychological event, a dream, thought, or emotion, finds meaningful parallel in an external physical event, without any apparent causal link between the two. These are the uncanny coincidences that feel too meaningful to be chance. For example, thinking of an old friend at random and moments later receiving a phone call or text from them. Such events suggest to Jung that causality is not the only force at work in the world, that meaning itself might be an organizing principle in nature. Marie-Louise von Franz delved deeply into this topic, becoming a leading interpreter of Jung's concept of synchronicity. In her book on divination and synchronicity, The Psychology of Meaningful Chance in 1980, she explored how synchronicity manifests across cultures, in ancient oral practices like the I Ching, in medieval astrology and magic, and in modern anecdotes and parapsychological research. She found a universal human fascination with these meaningful coincidences, suggesting that they tap into something fundamental about how mind and reality relate. For von Franz, synchronicities were not mere curiosities or paranormal flukes. Rather, she saw them as an expression of the objective psyche's holistic patterning, the way archetypal meanings weave themselves into the fabric of existence. In other words, a synchronicity is like a momentary eruption of underlying order. The psyche and the physical world momentarily fall into alignment, revealing an ordering principle that transcends the division between the inner and the outer worlds. When an outer event mirrors an inner state in a striking way, it hints that both are being orchestrated by the same deeper pattern or archetype. They're in alignment. Von Franz believed that recognizing synchronicities can expand our worldview. It challenges the strict materialistic assumption that mind and matter never interact except through direct physical causation. Instead, we are prompted to envision reality as an interconnected web of meaning, where mind and matter are intertwined. She even spoke of this as a radical re-envisioning of reality that bridges the split between mind, matter, inner and outer, psyche, and world, moving towards a new kind of science that honors subjective, symbolic dimensions alongside of objective facts. Importantly, von Franz was discerning. Not every odd coincidence is a capital S synchronicity. She advised a discriminating, open attitude. One should not force connections or see omens everywhere, but remain open to genuine, meaningful coincidences when they naturally arise. Those genuine synchronicities, in her view, might be glimpses of the unus mundus, the one world of unified reality that Jung and physicist Wolfgang Pauli conjectured, a level where psyche and matter are not separate things at all. In fact, Jung suggested that the unus mundus, there is no incommensurability between so-called matter and so-called psyche. They're just two aspects of one underlying transcendental background. In summary, Maria von Franz's work provided a rich historical and symbolic bridge between psychology and physics. She showed how symbolic systems, whether the alchemical opus, mythic numbers, or synchronistic patterns, suggested an underlying unity of mind and nature. She revived ancient ways of knowing, symbolism, myth, and divination, and showed they are not at odds with modern science, but rather complementary, pointing towards a reality where mind and matter form an interconnected whole. This Jungian foundation sets the stage for our exploration of how these ideas resonate with and inform modern quantum theories of consciousness.